Many years ago, before the town of Akpala learned that sweetness could carry poison, a woman named Ngozi arrived on a hot Tuesday afternoon when the sun was angry enough to fry eggs on the ground. She came with three things: a large aluminum pot that shined like new money, a folding table that had seen better days, and a small wooden stool. She set up her puff-puff stand at the junction near the motor park where everyone passed: traders, students, drivers, gossips, and dreamers. See, the moment she started frying, something magical happened. The smell traveled through the air like invisible hands, pulling people by their noses. Her puff-puffs were golden, perfectly round, and smelled like heaven mixed with childhood memories. The sweetness that trapped them. Her price shocked everyone: three puff-puffs for 50 naira when other sellers charged 100 naira for the same. Mama Chinyere, who sold puff-puff 2 streets away, heard the news and laughed bitterly. "Let's see how long her charity lasts," she said. But Ngozi's puff-puffs didn't just taste good, they tasted like the answer to a question nobody knew they were asking. Crispy outside, soft inside, sweet but not too sweet. People who bought one piece found themselves buying three more, then five more. "This woman's hand is blessed," the market women declared. "Even my grandmother's puff-puff wasn't this sweet," old man Okonkwo admitted, and he never praised anything made after 1975. Ngozi had a gift beyond cooking. She remembered everyone's name after hearing it once. She gave extra pieces without being asked. When Mama Ifeoma struggled with her heavy basket, Ngozi left her stand to help carry it. She gave free puff-puff to children whose pockets had more dust than coins, to pregnant women who looked tired, and to elderly people who reminded her of something she never spoke about. Within 2 weeks, the whole town called her Mama Ngozi, even though she looked barely 30 years old. Well, if eyes could see beyond smiles, they would have noticed strange things. She arrived every morning before the first cockerel crowed, but nobody saw where she came from. Her pot never seemed to run out. She fried continuously from sunrise to sunset, but never refilled the batter. At night, people who lived near the junction heard her humming old lullabies in a language that sounded like forgotten prayers. And her eyes, oh, her eyes lingered too long on people's faces after they bought from her, like she was memorizing something deeper than their features. But hungry people don't study the cook, they just eat. As weeks rolled by, something shifted in Akpala. People started craving her puff-puff the way fish crave water. Children refused breakfast unless it included Mama Ngozi's golden circles. Adults woke up thinking about it, worked while dreaming about it, and slept while planning tomorrow's visit. Some people went to her stand 3 times, 4 times, 5 times a day. Mama Chinyere and the other puff-puff sellers packed their pots and went home. Nobody bought from them anymore. What kind of magic is this? They whispered. But hunger has no loyalty, it follows the tastiest path. Then the real changes began. People who ate her puff-puff daily started acting like strangers living in familiar skin. They became secretive, defensive, protective of their habits. When relatives questioned them, they snapped back with anger that came from nowhere. "Everything tastes like sand except Mama Ngozi's puff-puff," they complained. Mothers abandoned their kitchens. Fathers spent their last money on fried dough instead of paying rent. Children stole coins from their parents' pockets, eyes glazed with need. The town didn't notice it was drowning because everyone was sinking together. Now, there was a girl named Adaeze, daughter of the town's herbalist. She had sharp eyes that missed nothing and a mind that asked questions others ignored. She never ate Mama Ngozi's puff-puff, not because she didn't want to, but because fried foods made her stomach fight back. Adaeze watched her neighbors change. She saw how their eyes looked foggy after eating, like someone had blown smoke behind their pupils. Her own brother, Chidi, stole money from their mother's purse 3 times in 1 week, always for the same reason. "There's something wrong with that woman," Adaeze told her mother. Her mother, chewing a piece of puff-puff, waved her away. "You're just jealous because you can't enjoy what others enjoy." So Adaeze did what curious girls do when adults won't listen. She investigated. One Friday night, after Mama Ngozi closed her stand, Adaeze followed her. The woman walked slowly, pot balanced on her head, humming that strange lullaby. She didn't go toward any house in town. Instead, she walked behind the old cemetery, into the bush where moonlight feared to shine bright. Adaise's heart drummed in her chest like talking drums, warning of danger, but she followed anyway. Deep in the bush, Ngozi entered a clearing with a small mud hut surrounded by smoking clay pots. Adaeze hid behind a thick tree and watched through the window. What she saw would visit her dreams for years. Mama Ngozi knelt before a shrine made of bones and burnt feathers. She poured her leftover batter into a large black pot that looked older than memory. Then she did something that made Adaeze's breath stop. She took a sharp knife and cut her own palm. Blood dripped into the batter-thick drops that sizzled when they landed, and she chanted in that strange language. Those who taste my sorrow shall hunger for more. Their minds will soften like dough. Their will shall knead into mine. Satisfaction will always be one bite away. Adaeze watched her mix in things that had no business touching food. Ash from burnt hair, crushed dried insects that clicked in the bowl, powdered bones that turned the batter briefly red before settling back to normal golden color. The batter glowed like dying coals, then became ordinary again. Mama Ngozi whispered to it like he was her child. Tomorrow they will eat again, and the day after, until they forget they were ever full. The thing about secrets is this: they are heavy, and when you pick one up, it follows you home. Adaeze stepped backward, and her foot found the one dry branch in the entire forest. The crack sounded like thunder in the silence. Mama Ngozi's head snapped toward the window. Her eyes glowed faintly, like candles behind dirty glass. Her voice came out smooth and cold. Whoever watches what they shouldn't see will taste hunger that never ends. Adaeze ran. She ran like her shoes were on fire, like death was a wind chasing her shadow. But as she ran, she felt something strange, invisible hands squeezing her stomach, planting a seed of hunger that whispered her name. When truth sounds like madness. The next morning, Adaeze rushed to the market, breathless and wild-eyed. She grabbed people by their arms and begged them to listen. Stop eating her puff-puff. She's doing something evil to it. I saw her, blood and bones and spells. People laughed. Some looked at her with pity, usually reserved for those who talk to themselves in public. You're just jealous because your mother can't fry like Mama Ngozi, someone said. Her own mother scolded her in front of everyone. Don't insult a woman who feeds this town with kindness and generosity. At noon, Mama Ngozi arrived with her pot, smiling like sunrise. She looked directly at Adaeze, and her smile grew wider. My dear child, you look so hungry. Here, take some puff-puff. It's free, especially for you. The crowd watching expected Adaeze to accept. When she refused, they turned on her like she'd spat on tradition itself. Ungrateful girl, Mama Ngozi offers you free food and you reject it. That night, Adaeze found her brother Chidi eating puff-puff in secret, sitting in the dark like shame was his blanket. His eyes were hollow caves, his hands shaking like leaves before a storm. I need it, Ada, he whispered. I can't stop. Please don't tell Mama. She tried to slap the food from his hand. He pushed her away hard, something he'd never done before. You don't understand. Nothing else tastes real anymore. Food is just food. But this feels like living. Adaeze went to Chief Okoro, the town elder, begging him to investigate. But when she entered his compound, she found him at his table with a bag of puff-puff, eating slowly, eyes staring at nothing. Mama Ngozi is a blessing, my child, he said softly. Why do you fight blessing? That night, Adaeze woke to find a figure standing at her window. Not threatening, just watching, just smiling. Mama Ngozi's voice floated through the darkness like smoke. You eat eventually, my dear. Everyone does. Hunger is patient, and I am very, very patient. Then she was gone, leaving only the smell of fried dough and something else, something that smelled like old grief. Desperate, Adaeze went to her grandmother, Mama Nkechi, who lived at the edge of town where wisdom lived in wrinkles and truth hid in her bundles. She told her everything, the ritual, the blood, the spell, the town's addiction. Her grandmother listened with the kind of silence that absorbs words and weighs them carefully. When Adaeze finished, the old woman nodded slowly. That woman is using Ogunri food magic, she said. It binds the stomach to the cook's will. The eater becomes a prisoner who doesn't know they're in jail. They think they're just enjoying good food, but really, they're feeding something else. The cook's pain, the cook's anger, the cook's revenge. How do we stop her? Adeze asked. You must make her eat her own creation, her grandmother replied, pulling out a small leather pouch containing a protective charm made from special leaves and whispered prayers. This will reverse the curse, but only for a moment. And in that moment, you must make her taste what she's been feeding others. The next morning, Adeze swallowed her pride like bitter medicine and went to Mama Ngozi's stand. In front of everyone, she knelt. Mama Ngozi, I'm sorry for doubting you. I was foolish and jealous. Please, forgive me. Teach me to fry like you so I can learn from the best. Mama Ngozi's smile could have lit a dark room. Pride sat on her face like a crown she'd been waiting to wear. Of course, my dear child. Come tomorrow morning. I'll show you everything. Early the next morning, before the world woke properly, Adeze arrived at the stand. Mama Ngozi was already there, pot heating, batter ready. As the woman fried, talking about temperature and timing, and the secret to perfect roundness, Adeze waited for her moment. When Ngozi turned to greet an early customer, Adeze dropped her grandmother's charm into the hot oil. It dissolved instantly, releasing a smell like rain on dry ground. Now, you try frying, Mama Ngozi instructed. Adeze fried one batch, hands shaking but steady enough. The puff-puffs came out golden, perfect, identical to Mama Ngozi's. Then Adeze said something that changed everything. Mama, you must taste this batch to make sure I did it right. A good teacher checks her students' work. Mama Ngozi's smile flickered like a candle in wind. I never eat my own cooking, my dear. Then how do you know it's good? Adeze's voice was firmer now. Just one piece, please, Mama. So I know I did well. A small crowd had gathered watching the lesson. They encouraged her. Mama Ngozi, taste it. Show her if she learns correctly. Pressured by eyes and expectations and pride that didn't want to seem suspicious, Mama Ngozi smiled, picked up one golden puff-puff, and took a bite. Her eyes widened. The smile died on her lips like a plant pulled from soil. She took another bite, then another. Her hands moved faster, stuffing puff-puff into her mouth, unable to stop, eyes streaming tears. What? What did you do? She gasped between bites. The crowd watched in frozen horror as Mama Ngozi ate frantically, choking, crying, unable to stop her own hands. And then the truth came pouring out of her mouth like water breaking through a dam. They took everything from me. This town, 20 years ago, they accused my mother of witchcraft and burned her alive in the market square. Old man Okonkwo's face went pale. Your little Ngozi, Mama Adaku's daughter. I was just a girl, she screamed, still eating, still unable to stop. I watched them burn her, watched them laugh, watched them celebrate, like they'd killed a snake instead of a woman whose only crime was knowing which herbs cure sickness. We thought you died in the fire, Chief Okoro whispered. I didn't die. Ngozi laughed bitterly, through tears and half-chewed food. I just learned to cook revenge. I learned the old ways, the real old ways. I came back to make them pay. To make them slaves to their own hunger, just like I was slave to my grief all these years. She kept eating, her body beginning to wither like paper near flame. The spell was feeding on itself, consuming its creator. I wanted them to feel empty forever, she whispered, voice fading. But I'm the one. I was always the one who was empty. She crumbled into ash right there, in front of everyone. Her body dissolved like sugar in hot water, leaving only her aluminum pot and the smell of burnt sugar mixed with old sorrow. The townspeople stood in silence, staring at the ash pile that used to be Mama Ngozi. Then, like people waking from a long sleep, they blinked and looked around confused. Someone dropped their puff-puff like it had burned them. Another person looked at the bag in their hand with disgust and fear. What have we been doing? Mama Ifioma asked, looking at her children who had grown thinner in weeks. Chidi ran to Adeze and hugged her, crying like he'd been lost and finally found his way home. Ada, what happened to me? I felt like I was drowning, but I couldn't stop swimming toward the bottom. Within days, The town tried to return to normal. Mothers cooked again. Fathers remembered their responsibilities. Children ate breakfast without crying for fried dough. But here's the strange thing about spells. When they break, they leave holes in memory. Most people forgot Mama Ngozi's face within a week. They remembered craving something desperately or couldn't remember what or why. The whole experience felt like a bad dream that fades when morning comes. Only Adeze and her grandmother remembered everything clearly. One afternoon, a traveler came to Akpala and stopped at the junction. He looked around, confused. "This is a busy spot," he said to Adeze, who sat nearby. "Why doesn't anyone sell puff-puff here?" Adeze looked at the empty space where Mama Ngozi's stand used to be. The ground still seemed darker there, like grief had stained it permanently. She answered quietly, "Because some hunger isn't for food, it's for justice. And if you feed it the wrong way, it doesn't fill you up, it eats you instead." The traveler didn't understand, so he moved on, but Adeze understood perfectly. See, Mama Ngozi thought she was serving revenge, disguised as generosity. She thought watching the town become addicted to her cursed food would heal the wound of losing her mother. But revenge is a strange dish. It tastes sweet when you are cooking it, but bitter when it's done. And if you are not careful, you become the main ingredient. That's the thing about pain. If you hold it too long, it stops being something you carry and becomes something you are. Mama Ngozi didn't feed the town her cooking. She fed them her suffering. And suffering, when it's all you know how to serve, will eventually demand that you sit at your own table. True justice doesn't come from making others taste your pain. It comes from releasing the bitterness before it becomes the only flavor you remember. And that, my dear friends, is how the town of Akpala learnt that the sweetest poison is the one that tastes like love. What lessons did you learn? Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss a story. Share this with someone who needs to hear it today.